13 ABC. Conklin and Company with 13 ABC Action News anchor Lee Conklin. First with what's happening behind the headlines. And Take 3, our panel of political analysts.
And good morning, everybody. Welcome into another edition of Conklin and Company. Today on the program, your 401k. You likely scored big time in 2013, but what about this year? We're going to look at the market and more in the economy and you and some of our local companies. Are they really good investments? Financial expert Alan Lance joins us in studio. In Take 3, the governor in town this week or in the area for the Wood County Lincoln Day dinner. The Collins administration says hold the phone on the former mayor's balanced budget for 2014 and redevelopment possibilities for Southwick and the marina also on the table in Take 3 this morning. But first, the President's State of the Union address coming up this week, this Tuesday. And ready or not, here come the Winter Olympics in Sochi, Russia. So many questions about security and more there. 13 ABC Washington Bureau Chief Jacqueline Policastro joining us from Washington this morning. Jacqueline, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it very much. Let's start with the President's fifth State of the Union address. This is so important for him. 3 years to go here. A lot of focus on who's going to run for the election coming up 3 years from now, but so much to do in the next 3 years. So what can we expect on Tuesday?
Well, Lee, I hate to break it to you, but we can probably expect a lot more of the same of what we heard about last year. I'm talking about immigration reform, raising the minimum wage, definitely a lot of talk about the economy and how to create jobs. You know, the White House really doesn't give us, though, a lot of information about exactly what's going to be inside the State of the Union address because I like to keep that pomp and circumstance surrounding the big speech. But we will hear a lot about some of those same topics. You know, how do we pay our bills on time? Something that never got addressed last year. We saw we had a government shutdown. So there will probably be a few fun surprises, but most of the same types of things we heard about last year.
And it'll be interesting to see how long it goes, how many standing ovations there are. I mean, they seem to, you know, that's a big deal when these State of the Unions come up. We'll see what happens on Tuesday. What are our members of Congress saying about it? You talk with them frequently. Tell us about what they're saying.
Yeah, I did talk with them. I can tell you that Congressman Bob Latta says he wants to hear about Obamacare. He wants to know about security issues with that, but really that's not something that we expect the president to actually address, of course. He also wants to hear about the national debt. He wants to know what President Obama thinks that he's going to do to bring down the national debt. But again, you know, coming from a Republican, those are the things he wants to hear, but they're very unlikely to be brought up in that sense. I did talk to Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur, a Democrat, and she wants to hear about Obamacare as well, but you know, from her, she wants it to be in a positive light. She wants to hear about the economy and creating jobs, you know, and she told me one thing that's really important to her. She wants to see if the president's going to bring up extending those federal unemployment benefits.
You know, still a stickler right now that we thought would get done before
really
the start of this new year. White House apparently has something new this year in terms of staying connected to the State of the Union. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, Lee, there's something that I thought was actually really neat. Of course, we want everyone to watch the State of the Union address on WTVG, but if you have your computer nearby, the White House is doing something where while this speech is going on, you're able to sort of take a look at these graphs and charts, things that are helping to explain what the president's talking about during the speech. And then after the speech, you can share ideas about what you heard through social media websites, and they even have a group of White House advisors standing by that you can live write to via the web and ask questions about different things that the president talked about inside the speech. And this is something that we know this White House has done well from the moments of campaigning all the way now, you know, throughout the campaign. But this is just something that, you know, we haven't seen before, and hopefully it will allow Americans to, you know, really participate in this instead of it just being a big grand speech with all of those standing ovations that you mentioned.
All the pomp and circumstance that you mentioned as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have the State of the Union, plenty of talk before that and after that, I'm sure, but we're just a couple of weeks away now, a little less than that, as this program airs on Sunday morning from the start of the Winter Olympics in Sochi, Russia. You were there this past September, and there's a big focus on security there. Tell us about Sochi itself and just your personal thoughts when you were there. You were covering the G20 summit actually in Russia. Tell us about your visit there.
Well, Lee, when I went to Sochi, I can tell you that, it was much smaller than I anticipated. When you get into this tiny airport, really no one was speaking English at all, and you're kind of getting into a cab with random people, trusting that they're going to take you where you need to go. Another thing that's interesting is we're talking about the Sochi Olympics, but it wasn't really happening in Sochi. It's happening in this town, Adler, that's about a half-hour cab drive to Sochi. And, this is a place that's typically pretty warm, so it's sort of ironic to have the Winter Olympics there. When I was there, in September, which is not really that long ago, there was still so much work to be done. There were Chechen workers literally picking up rocks with their hands and moving them, doing this type of construction. Packs of wild dogs everywhere. It definitely had a sort of eerie feeling about it even then. And I anticipate there's been a lot of changes since then, but it felt sort of strange being there.
When you think about places where there have been the Winter Games before, Lillehammer and Lake Placid and Vancouver and Salt Lake City, wild dogs don't come to mind.
Right, exactly. I'm sure they've gotten rid of them, and I don't want to, even speculate how, but that was just something that really struck me.
Okay. How hard do you think, with all this talk of the terror threat, how hard do you think being there, seeing it, that area will be to secure?
Well, we hear about this ring of steel, right? And we sort of have to trust in it. But it could be a difficult place to secure. Look, we're in an area where we know that there are terrorists who are essentially our neighbors there. We knew that when we decided to have the Olympics there. It's a dangerous area. We see the terrorist attacks that have happened not that far away from there. And we're really looking to watch and trust what the Russian government is saying. They say that they have about 40,000 security agents on the ground, but it is sort of unpredictable. And we have a pretty good working relationship right now surrounding the security, but we know that our relations with the Russian government haven't always been easy. So it's something that we're watching, and people that are going really need to be vigilant about.
And we hear the ticket sales are not good in comparison to other winter games. It's a tough place to get to. You can attest to that.
Yeah.
What's the United States doing to ease fears of Americans who have tickets and are heading to Russia?
Well, the State Department did put out a travel warning, and I've talked to some people who say that they're actually not going after that. After these recent reports, we had that incident with those emails being sent to some foreign governments. Some people are just saying, enough is enough. I don't know that it's worth it. You mentioned the ticket sales. The Russian government says that they believe that many local people will wind up coming to the games, or they'll fill them with volunteers. We also have information from the State Department saying that they will have, vessels there ready to take any Americans that could be in danger out of the area. But it's a very tricky situation for so many people involved. Athletes who spent their entire careers waiting for this moment, thousands of them going to the region, and they're really just going to have faith that nothing will happen.
Just 2 weeks away, less than that now, as we are on Sunday morning. But the games, as we say, will go on, and it'll be a fascinating watch a couple of weeks from now. As always, Jacqueline Policastro, thanks very much for joining us, adding kind of a personal perspective on the Sochi Games. We do appreciate it. We will talk to you next time.
Thanks for having me. And
when we come back on Conklin and Company, your 401k, how it did in 2013 and where it's going in 2014. Alan Lance of the Lance Letter, financial expert here on 13 ABC, joins us in just a moment.